You're sitting on a hot rock, ain't you? I like to see you jump.
Scott, have you seen Pickup on South Street?
I have seen Pickup on South Street, directed by Sam Fuller, with Richard Widmark, Gene Peters, and Thelma Ritter starring in the film. It's a great film noir and kind of a surprising one as well.
It is. I mean, it's Samuel Fuller, whose movies are pretty different than a lot of other people's. And this one might be, in some ways, one of his most conventional ones, but it's still pretty different than other film noirs.
It is. I mean, because there's a political aspect that you don't see coming. I mean, unless you had read about it or whatever, but you don't see coming until it's there, which isn't that long into the plot, but it's still kind of, it sets itself apart from other types of film noir.
And it sets itself apart because it's a Samuel Fuller film. And Fuller's films are, no matter what type of film it is, he worked in a lot of genres, they're very energetic, emotional, in many ways more brutal than other films for the time. He draws you in with this combination of fast camera moves, high and low angle shots, tight close-ups, lots of tight close-ups that reveal characters. This is an 80-minute film. Sam Fuller was this guy who his first training was as a storyteller, as the youngest crime reporter in history, a 17-year-old crime reporter in New York. So he knew how to jump right to the key plot points, the emotional points, and edit briskly, shoot briskly, and just tell a great story.
And this is probably one of the only Samuel Fuller films that I've seen. I know that I've seen at least one or two others decades ago, but I can't even tell you what movies those were.
Samuel Fuller he worked in different genres. He made several war movies. We'll talk about Fuller later because he is a fascinating character. But he fought in World War II. He made several war movies, very different than most war movies because of his experiences. And he made a few film noirs. And yeah, he's just a really interesting director. But let's talk about what this movie's about. Pickup on South Street, 1953. The movie starts with a young woman riding a subway train in New York. The train is completely crowded, so she's standing, holding on to one of those hand grips. And turns out that she has her wallet stolen. Her wallet is pickpocketed. So this is Gene Peters and Richard Widmark, the lead in the film, slides up next to her and pickpockets her purse and steals her wallet. And it turns out that in this wallet is a strip of film that she's delivering to someone as a favor to her ex-boyfriend. And unknown to her, this film contains top secret information stolen by communist spies. That's who her boyfriend's working for. Side note, this movie is 1953. It's the height of the Cold War. So this kind of thing was a really common theme.
It's a common theme, but this is where I say it's kind of surprising because I don't expect to have political espionage intrigue inserted into my film noir. And here it is.
Yeah. And it's really interesting the way Fuller handles it. And it was controversial. And we'll talk about that, the whole aspect of that. So there end up being three characters who are at the center of the story, and this is a very Fuller thing. All three of them are marginal characters who have to live by their wits, scams, and deals that they make. There's the young woman, Candy, who it turns out, we don't really know what it is, but we know she's kind of living off the streets, and she may be an ex-prostitute based on some of the stuff her communist boyfriend says. Then there's the pickpocket, Skip, and he now has this top secret stolen information, even though he doesn't know what it is. And then there's this older woman named Mo, who's a friend of Skip's, but she's a police informer. And at one point, she actually rats out Skip, and he doesn't even mind because he's like, she's just doing her job. So the FBI and the police, they desperately want to recover this film because it's got a top secret chemical formula on it. But Skip, Candy, and Mo are just trying to survive and make a living. So the authorities try to appeal to their patriotism, but that doesn't carry a lot of weight. What appeals to them is, you give me $50 or $100 and maybe I'll give you some information. Candy tracks Skip down and they get involved financially and sexually. You can't really say romantically because it happens really fast, like the first second they meet, and it's clear they're just using each other.
It's clear that they're using each other, but later Mo says that she's in love with him.
Well, later they do fall in love by what happens in the movie, right? I mean, at first, Candy just wants to clear up the trouble, right? She gets out of the subway, the thing's gone. She goes back to her commie boyfriend, and he's like, oh, we're in huge trouble. You got to find that film. And he doesn't do much. He sends her out to go find it. So she has to track down Skip, using Mo and various leads. On the street, she finds Skip. So she wants to clear up the trouble. Skip, once he finds out, oh, I've got something, I didn't just score a few bucks out of this wallet. I've got this film that people really care about. He wants a big payoff. At one point she's offering him like $500 because that's what her boyfriend gives her. And Skip's like, you go back to him. I want $25,000. So, and we're talking 1953 here, right? In today's dollars, that's a lot of money. Candy's ex-boyfriend, so Joey, he shakes her down for Skip's address. When she can't get the film back, he's like, I'm going to go do it himself. And she lies about where he lives. And then Joey discovers that she lied, that she's covering up for Skip. And why is she covering up for Skip? They like each other, but mainly it's because they're both trying to get something out of this. But when the boyfriend finds this out, in this brutal scene, really brutal for the 50s, done in one shot, he beats her, and as she tries to escape, he shoots her. And she survives. And then when Skip finds out she almost died trying to protect him, right? That's when
Skip realizes that she's in love with him.
Right, and that he's in love with her, that there's more to it and they're not just using each other. And now Skip will help the authorities, not out of any respect for them or out of the political patriotism they've been trying to get out of him, but he owes it to Candy and he wants to see Joey get punished.
Well, in the way that this all happens, the movie is only about an hour and 20 minutes to an hour and a half long. So
80 minutes, an hour and 20
80
minutes.
It just moves really quickly.
Yeah, and you and I, we love short movies, right?
Especially when you're talking about film noir or crime or suspense movies. The shorter, the better in some ways.
Yeah, he's just so efficient, and it's such great storytelling. It's so fast, and just I love Sam Fuller for this. And this many people think this is his greatest movie. It's not as difficult as some of his other movies. The politics of it is great, and because here's what happened in real life. This is interesting. It's an interesting artifact of the Red Scare era, the communist witch hunt era. When this movie came out, and even before it, there's an interesting thing, which is literally J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI, the founder of the FBI, found out about this meeting, got a hold of the script. Hollywood often was getting their stuff screened in these days, and demanded changes to the script because the Skip character is so disrespectful to the FBI, who are trying to appeal to his patriotism. But Darryl F. Zanuck, the great producer Darryl Zanuck at 20th Century Fox, who was the producer of this, backed Fuller and refused to make the changes. So that's kind of cool. What happened was, when it came out, conservatives, anti-communist people, accused Fuller of being a communist sympathizer because, Skip's not cooperating with them. But on the other side, liberals accused him of being a red baiter because there is this anti-communist sentiment to the movie. Here's what Fuller said. This is a quote. "I had no intention of making a political statement, none whatsoever. My yarn is a noir thriller about marginal people, nothing more, nothing less."
And you see it in the movie. Like I said, I was a little taken aback by the political insertion into the storyline.
Yeah.
It was not something that I was used to seeing. And there is sort of the FBI and the law enforcement there's a certain level of goodness that they're portrayed by, but they're also portrayed like the Skip character points out to the one police detective that he had backed out on his word before when he put him in jail. So he's like, I can't trust you. And so you get that angle as well. But it's interesting that he would be accused of being a communist sympathizer because you do see some other characters that are maybe higher up in the local communist cell, and they don't come across as being good guys.
No, and that's why liberals who saw this, or people, or just people who were suffering because of all this communist witch hunt going on in the 50s, said, you've just portrayed the real communists in the movie as just like they're just evil, they're just nasty, sweaty, bad people. So that's where he got the flack from that side. But a lot of it came down to that scene in the police headquarters where the FBI agent's there too. I'll read the dialogue. So the FBI agent says to Skip, "If you refuse to cooperate, you'll be as guilty as the traitors that gave Stalin the A-bomb." And Skip says, "Are you waving the flag at me?" And the FBI agent says, "Do you know what treason means?" And Skip says, "Who cares? Is there a law now? I got to listen to lectures?"
Yeah, those are great scenes. And there's more than one scene like that.
Yeah.
Where they're leaning on him in terms of like trying to get him to do the patriotic thing. And he's like, hey, man, I'm just trying to live here.
Right. But then later on, Mo, the stool pigeon, when she has this confrontational scene with Joey, the communist boyfriend, she could help herself and give him some information, but she's like, I just don't like commies.
Yeah, so you get that too.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Mo, because she's a great character, and she's portrayed by Thelma Ritter, who's one of the great character actors throughout Hollywood, throughout the history of Hollywood, and worked until she died, basically.
Yeah, and she was always another movie she's really well known for as a supporting actress is Rear Window. And in this movie, she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. I don't think she won, but she was one of these character actors. She was nominated like 6 times.
That's interesting that there would have been some award nominations for this movie, because
that's the only one, I think.
Because of the brevity and also because of the nature of the film in terms of film noir, I would have thought that this would have been a B picture.
Yeah, well, this is one of his rare A pictures. I mean, after this, most of Fuller's, in terms of the financing and the people in the movies and stuff, most of Samuel Fuller's movies are B, but this was an A picture. But yeah, in those days, nowadays, Oscars go to all kinds of edgy movies, right? But back then, no. Alfred Hitchcock never won a Best Director Oscar. Alfred Hitchcock, right? I mean, they didn't give them to horror and drama, noir and crime movies and stuff. They wanted serious drama.
Well, talk about Fuller's other movies.
Well, I mean, it's funny. I've said this before. I've been keeping a log of all the movies I've watched for like the last 5 years, right? And we're talking hundreds of movies, right? And I just for my own sake, I give them a star rating from 0 to 4 stars. And there's 2 in there that I just put big question marks. I had no idea whether to give these movies like 2 stars or 5 stars, and they were both Samuel Fuller movies. Shot Corridor and The Naked Kiss. You've never seen either of these films from the 60s?
I think I may have seen The Naked Kiss.
They are just so bizarre. I mean, so Fuller was really out there. But he also made some really terse, more conventional films. He made great war movies, and Fuller himself is an amazing guy. He wrote a great autobiography. Fuller had like 3 lives. Samuel Fuller started in newspapers like when he was 12 years old, working in newspapers, and became the youngest crime reporter in New York. So he was writing crime stories, as a reporter when he was 17 and 18 years old. Then he had a second chapter to his life. He was in the Big Red One, the big army unit in World War II that he fought in North Africa. He fought in the battles in Italy. He fought in the Battle of the Bulge. He was in a unit that liberated a concentration camp. He was at the center of this and won like a Bronze Star, a Silver Star, a Purple Heart. I mean, the guy, incredible. So when he made war movies, he refused. I mean, he could have cast John Wayne. He wouldn't make a World War II movie. He made all these Korean movies, but he was afraid to touch World War II because that was his experience, and he wanted it done right. And he was offered big money, an A-picture kind of thing, to do it with John Wayne, and he wouldn't do it because he said John Wayne movies are fake.
But he ultimately made an autobiographical one called The Big Red One.
He did make The Big Red One with Lee Marvin in the lead, who he thought could play it better, much better. And then there's the third chapter in his life, the longest one. He became a filmmaker. He wrote a lot of scripts. He was writing scripts. He wrote novels and scripts even when he was younger. There's a great scene in The Big Red One. There's a character that's kind of modeled on him. And they're resting. I think here's his unit over in Europe fighting World War II, and they're resting. And one of the other soldiers is reading a book, and Fuller goes, "Hey, that's my book." And the guy goes, "No, it's not. It's my book. I bought it at the PX." And Fuller goes, "No, it's my book. I wrote it." And that's true. While Fuller had submitted a novel before he volunteered and went off to fight in World War II, and the novel got published while he was over in Europe fighting. So he was a published novelist. And when he first came back, he was writing screenplays. So he got into Hollywood as a writer and then as a director. So what a life. I mean, this guy, incredible.
And if you ever see any sort of filmed or taped interviews with him, he is a character. He himself presents himself as a larger-than-life type of character. I can't even describe him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he's always chomping on a big cigar, and but I mean, in a way, you could see someone doing this kind of stuff, and you think, what a poser. This guy's just like he's trying to look macho, but he's actually, when you see it, when you listen to what he's saying, he's a very kind and sympathetic person. One thing, when he was asked about politics, he said, I don't know that much about politics. I just know I hate totalitarianism. I hate dictators.
All right, let's talk about Richard Widmark as well, who's plays Skip in here, and he does it with that Richard Widmark energy.
Right. So again, this is not a cast of the names that trip off your tongue as the top actors, right? Richard Widmark and Jean Peters.
And Jean Peters I did not recognize, so this is my first time I've seen her in a film.
She wasn't in very many films. And a great story about this movie, when they brought her in to do rehearsals, Sam Fuller noticed there was always this guy that drove her, and he would wait, and he'd wait in the car the whole time. And Fuller said, you can bring, is it your boyfriend? She said, yeah. He said, you can bring him in, he can get comfortable. He doesn't have to sit in the car. And she said, no, it's what he wants to do. It turned out that her boyfriend was Howard Hughes, one of the richest men in the world and a Hollywood producer. And he wanted to sit in the car because he was a reclusive kind of guy. They ended up getting married, and she never acted in that many movies. Yeah, she lived a kind of reclusive life with Hughes for about 8 years. So she's a really interesting actress. Richard Widmark was pretty big by this time because he burst onto the scene in this movie called Kiss of Death. Have you seen that?
I have not seen Kiss of Death. I have seen scenes of it.
You know the notorious scene.
The
right?
notorious scene.
Yeah. Richard Widmark in Kiss of Death plays this gangster, this cheap hood in New York City. And he pushes, there's a woman in a wheelchair, and he pushes her down the stairs. And this is like, welcome to Richard Widmark. And so they always cast him. They always wanted to cast him. They often cast him as a bad guy. And even when he's good, even when he's sympathetic, like in this movie they have you sympathizing with these petty criminals because they're not harming anyone, and they're pretty nice. But so Widmark's okay, but even when he's okay, he's still a loose cannon.
Still a loose cannon, and there's one thing that I would want to point out that kind of stood out in the movie to me that would not work today at all, and younger audiences might be put off by it, is that we talked about the communist boyfriend beating her up and putting her into the hospital, but also there are a couple of scenes where Richard Widmark punches her or slaps her around.
Well, he does it accidentally.
He punches her because she's invading his house, his little lakeside shack that he lives in. So he doesn't know if it's a man or a woman.
Right, he doesn't see her at all because it's dark and she's got a flashlight, and she stands up and shines the light right in his face, and that's when he just rears back and hits whoever it is.
But there's another scene that follows where he's slapping her around too, and that's just something that would not go over well with a younger audience.
It wouldn't. It's not. He's not beating her. It's not. It's just. But yes, it's definitely dated by today's standards.
But that said, the dynamic between the two characters otherwise works really well. It's fluid. You believe in it. And it's interesting to see him go, the Skip character go. He never becomes truly a good guy. No. He has his reasons for helping the authorities that are personal. He finds a way to do the right thing, but he's still, we don't need to give any spoilers, but by the end of the movie, you see like he'll probably continue his life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So in that sense, it violates the spirit of the production code because you got these kind of low-level criminals who get to walk away, and they're going to keep doing it. But, he could get out of it, right? One thing we learned about him is he's been in prison 3 times. He's a 3-time loser, and they repeat a few times that if he gets convicted again, he's going to prison for life. They say that's what the law is. And here he is with the police captain who would love to put him in prison for life, but the FBI agent's sitting right there saying, you are free to go. You can tell us you did the pickpocketing and stole the film. You're okay. You're going to get off because we need to be a patriot and help us catch these communists. But he's just like, he won't cooperate with the police.
So now I definitely want to see some more Samuel Fuller movies. He was apparently influenced by the Italian neorealists who we've talked about, Rome, Open City, Bicycle Thieves, great movies. You can see it in this noir, even though it still gives you the thrills of a classic film noir from Hollywood.
Yeah, isn't that an interesting, that's another spin on Fuller, that he maybe that's why his films are different and edgier besides his background. He also was looking at European art films.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Scott.